Welcome to the Brotherhood Beyond Business podcast, where we discuss how to become the CEO of your own life. Today's guest is Rouse of Breakaway Fitness and Performance. Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
So I started Breakaway Fitness and Performance after a conversation with my grandfather back in 2013. Is in the fitness industry, he was an entrepreneur. He didn't go to college. He built up a fairly big business, and then he went more into real estate, and he had an open spot for me. He gave me 4 months rent free to give it a shot over a conversation we had over sandwiches at lunch. And I just immediately said yes. I did not tell my wife, didn't discuss it with anybody, just went right into it. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. And we kind of went running from there since 2013. Fast forward to 2024, we're still in that same location, just about 3 times the size that we were. We've had 2 locations at one point. I've shut one down, probably shifted my priorities more than, or at least as much as a lot of the people that I know that are business owners. And that's where we're at.
Tell us a little bit, like you have a family. Tell us about the size of your family and the life you have a little bit outside the business as well.
Yeah. So I have 3 kids. Youngest is a daughter. She's 4. I have a 6-year-old middle son named Noah. And my oldest son is 16. His name is Aiden. It's a learning experience with all of them. But with the first one, it's always this next life milestone. And I've got to figure out how to be a great dad to him and be a great business owner and be a great husband while I've got this. What was once a little boy is now taller than me. His voice is as deep, if not deeper than mine. It's like this whole other experience that I'm figuring out. And things like that have led to me shifting my priorities in business. But my wife and I, we got married in 2011, but we were together. We've been together since 2006. And we've kind of ridden through life together with lots of ups and downs and then lots of amazing times. And we have a home here in Hampstead, North Carolina. And our mother-in-law lives with us, which adds a whole other dynamic into things. But that's kind of our family unit. We've got the 3 kids, the mother-in-law, got my wife. Wife pretty much works full-time, also works in the business. So it's never a dull moment.
What originally drew you to be in the first mastermind you ever were in?
Man, honestly, the first mastermind that I was in, I signed a 1-month trial and forgot to cancel and got locked into 12 months. That was like the deal if you signed up. And I knew that. I just forgot to cancel. So, like anything else that I kind of take on in life, I was going to maximize my value with that program and make sure I got my money's worth out of it. Because back then that was very expensive to me. It was when I first opened my business. And that led to me going to these meetings once a quarter with a company that hosted these meetings out in Kentucky. And I would say being in those meetings, which weren't even quite as organized as the mastermind that I got into later down the road, but just getting started with that, getting out of my business, getting into these meetings with other people who understood what I was going through because they were going through the same things, was just like this eye-opening experience for me. It went from something that, maybe seemed a little sensational in marketing when people were marketing at me about masterminds, to something that has to be a part of my life now. That I cannot imagine my life without being a part of a group of my peers who are going to help me figure things out and work through things.
Yeah, that's exactly where I am as well. That's why I started my own mastermind, is because of the life-changing experience I've had through it. I've always had business partners, but there's a level of having business partners, and there's also having people that you don't have to, like you don't have to share money with, that still want to invest with you, right? Or invest. And that's been the awesome part about a mastermind group, is the investment you get from other people, even though they really have your business improving and your life improving has no impact on them, except for it just like fuels them to see, hey, you're winning and I want to win as well, which is one of the most important components of the mastermind group. For a little bit of feedback on me and Joe have been in a mastermind together 8 years, maybe longer. I don't know. It's been a long time we've been together.
Yeah, it might've been longer than that now.
Yeah. So we've been in mastermind groups for a long time. He was actually the first person I ever met in a mastermind. Cause I think we were at that hotel in, I don't remember where in South Carolina. Yeah, South Carolina. Yeah, I know it was on Bethel's place. I can't remember what the town is.
like Columbia or I can't remember either, but it's
Yeah,
South small
so,
town. North Carolina.
but yeah, so we went and you were the first person I ever met at the mastermind. We clicked instantly, like, which was awesome. I think that was one of the best part about a first mastermind group that I was in, is we clicked really quickly. So what is the thing you enjoy the most about being a mastermind group?
I think for me, it's always being around other people that understand what I'm going through. Like when it comes to business or any specific topic, it's like if you go to church and you have a group of men, there should be a group of men that you're a part of at a church as a man that help bring you up in some area of life that you're not great at. And when it comes to a mastermind group with business specifically, it's being around other people who help bring me up in areas that I'm deficient in. But it's also always lonely at the top. And I'm not saying lonely at the top to brag, but I am the business owner. So that's me at the top of it. And there's so many things that you just can't have a discussion about with your best friend, or you can't have a discussion about with your spouse necessarily, because we're thinking things through from a completely different perspective, which can be valuable at times. But being in a group of people who share experience in that same area, it's, to overgeneralize, it's comforting in a way. Like there's security in it, because you're no longer lonely. But it's also there. It's also helps to hold you accountable when you need that as well.
Yeah, I have a unique perspective since I've always had business partners.
Mm-hmm.
Every business I've ever owned, I had business partners. So like when I talk to some of you guys, like you and Mark and Danny, I think everybody in our group besides me has business partners, and so it doesn't have business partners, and so it's a unique thing because I have those people to bounce it off of all the time. So when I'm going through things, it's hard, but then I still get a ton of value out of everybody else's perspective. But
Mm-hmm.
and I was talking to Danny about this, the fact that like you guys just don't have anybody really to lean on, because when things really get hard, there's only one person that can answer the question. Like you got to step up and do it, which is, I think the mastermind power, there's a power in that. Is like, okay, I know I've got to say this very difficult thing. Let me bounce it off this group of people to see how they can help me like take the pressure off a little bit.
Yeah, so I don't screw it up and say it wrong. Maybe one of them already said it wrong and they can tell me. You know what I mean? Like that's for me, that's always been my biggest, probably. I've been lucky enough to make some very good friends, like we talked about in our mastermind group. It's led to, essentially like a brotherhood. But outside of that, it's just so important as a business owner to be around other people regularly that you can trust, that are going through that same thing you are.
Can you share a memorable experience or a moment from the mastermind group that stands out to you?
Just one moment from the mastermind group that stands out to me. I mean, we've been in a mastermind group for so long now. I mean, do you want, depends on what kind of moments we're talking about, because we've had a lot of fun together.
It can be anything. It can be fun.
I mean, I've had little, like probably, so a great example, this is not the most like memorable thing, but this is just what comes to mind right now. One of the most useful, basic, simple tools that I've ever gotten was not from something that I paid for. It was from somebody in our mastermind group, and then talking about it and deciding how to go about it. But I was at my second location, our retention was horrible. And at the first location, it wasn't as good as it used to be, because now I was having to be at the second location. So just this one tool that I got from another guy in our mastermind group to track and reach out to certain people before they potentially fall off improved our retention dramatically. That's a memorable thing for me, because it made a difference in my business. Like dollars and cents made a difference in my business, because we're able to keep people around longer, which is huge. But that's just something it's more recent. I mean, there's a lot of memories. Like there's some of the best memories are going out to dinner and the conversations that happen there, like outside of the formal meeting times. I feel like we've solved, if the world was ours, we've solved the world's problems when we go out to dinner.
Yeah, completely agree. It's this, there's a mist as society changes over the years. I remember when I was a kid, there's always these things called like JVs or these local men's groups all over the place when my dad was growing, when my dad was like our age. And they always had these men's groups to go to and to be with other men and do these things. It's almost gone now. Like you said, unless you find it at a church, you just don't find those things anymore. You don't find these groups to be in pure groups of like-minded men, which I keep on saying men for a specific reason, because women should have their own groups too, because there's just conversations and there's things you can get into that other people can. I just don't think it's fair to say everything should always be equal in that sense, because there's just, you got it. Like a struggling dad has the same problems as other struggling dads versus a struggling mom has different problems than the dad has. And so I just remember my dad talking about that, how they always had all these groups that they could go to and be part of, like these men's groups. And the only way to find those again are church and then like something like this, because and that's what I take away from our mastermind groups is the fact that like ours are men only. And it's because like I take so much value from hearing from other men the things that are going through, and also like being challenged by other men to be like, okay, you can be a better version of who you are. And there's no other excuse than the fact that I'm a man running a business just like you that has kids. I don't have kids, but like has kids. And I can tell you, because I know exactly what you're going through. And every excuse you're making right now is exactly that. It's an excuse.
I think what you I was literally thinking that as you were talking, like you hit the nail on the head, because you'll be challenged. You won't, like I talked about somebody understanding what I'm going through. Maybe that means I get to vent to them for a few minutes, but I'm not going to sit there and say something about how my business is going and they're going to like complain along with me. Or if I'm there, if it's a group where we're going to dive into things outside of business, and maybe it has to do with the spouse or maybe it has to do with the kids. We're not, you don't want to be in a group where people are going to sit around and complain about each other's spouses, right? Like you're going to challenge each other, be like, hey, you're dropping the ball there. You should probably pick up the slack and stop whining about it. Like there's an aspect of that to it too. Like when it comes to the personal life, where that challenge is very, very important. And if you're in the right group of men, then that should be happening constantly.
And I think there's some times where we all have the exact same struggle at the same time, right? But the cool part that's always been about the group is, even though we're all having the same struggle, none of us just sit back and like gossip about it. Like, oh, the idea is where we can just sit there and just be like, oh, woe is me. And we all kind of get in this victim mentality. It's like, even though we all are having the same problem, what we do is when we all are having the same problem, we get together and figure out a solution so we no longer have this problem, versus like, just because everybody else is having, like, oh, now we can bitch and moan and complain about it because everybody else is struggling with it. But instead, it's like, we are still like growth mindset people. And so we're okay, now we figure out the problem. Now, how do we all fix the problem so it's no longer a problem anymore?
That's it, dude. We get together and go attack.
Exactly. And that's what I love about an entrepreneur-based mastermind too, is like the fact that we can attack. We don't have to like wait on a boss or somebody else to make the choice for us. Like, no, it's on us. It's 100% on us. We just need like everybody else to give us the confidence to learn from them. That, okay, I can go do this myself, and like 6 other people are going to go do this as well. And I don't want to be the person that doesn't follow through with their component of it.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Me neither. That's awesome. Like, so you've talked about them a little bit. What are some key benefits you've gained from being in a mastermind group? And not in benefits in terms of like, it can be personal and it can be business. But overall, like, what are the things that you benefit the most from being in a group?
I mean, I've gained lifelong friends from a mastermind group. That's absolutely the biggest benefit, far and away. I'm not saying everybody will do that when they're part of a mastermind group, because I don't know that that's always the norm. I feel like we have been unique in being in a group together for 8+ years, however long it's been. But it's kept me from making poor decisions in my business when I've wanted to make decisions and then just like take off. Because that's how a lot of us entrepreneurs are. Like, we're action takers, regardless of if somebody's highly analytical or not. Most of us are entrepreneurs because we want to take action, which is kind of what you just said. But being in these groups together, we can be around other people who've taken that action before, and they can just say, hey, you raised your price. You want to raise your prices? Okay, here's what I did that didn't work out. Here's what somebody else did that did work out. Here's how, you should probably go about it. And then you figure out the best way. So just getting value from other people's experience has been pretty big. And then having that brotherhood, making those friends that have lasted a long time. I keep coming back to it, but just not being alone, getting the opportunity to get out of the business. It's kind of cliche, but getting out of the business to work on the business is a big benefit when it comes to business. And it could be you're working on something else too, whatever it is, like getting away from it so that you can clear your head and then properly discuss it and communicate it, and then decide how you're going to take action with people that you trust is a big deal.
Yeah, and I think the relationship side that you keep on pointing at is it's kind of we only get together two times a year, but I can honestly say that when I see like I saw you in April, we'll see each other again in October. I don't feel like there's much time that's passed from the last time I saw you. Which for
Yeah.
most people, if I haven't seen them for 6 months, I have no clue what's going on in their life. I don't even know if they're still alive. But the idea is like for us, we have such a like there's a relationship obviously in the live things. We have a lot of like communication in between the live and the virtuals and all that kind of stuff. But it is awesome that like when I think of like friends, I legitimately put you guys in my best friends groups because like I know more about what's going on in these guys' lives than I know about my best friend from high school, you know. So
Yeah.
that's kind of it's like it's just a different level of relationship that I think men don't even sometimes think they can have. I'm 38, you're what 39.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're at 38, 39 years old. Most men probably don't even think they can have those kind of relationships anymore. And I have more of those relationships now in my life than I had when I was in my early 20s.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. Just as a result of being in this group.
Exactly. So I'm actually going to direct you to the exact thing I want you to talk about here, but the question is, can you give an example of specific challenge you faced and how your mastermind group helped you overcome it? I'm going to point to closing your second location and just the feedback that you got. Obviously, I think you're part of the Two Brain group as well. You got feedback from them, but also the feedback from the mastermind group that kind of helped you get through that difficult time.
I think the one thing, because we know each other well enough and we've been together and we trust each other, and in closing my second location, first there was two people, two of y'all, right? Two people that have closed a second location or either sold a second location within our mastermind group. So like, because you've transferred your ownership to your other business partner. And then we had Danny, who actually kind of opened up his second location around the same time as me and closed his much earlier than I did. So I was able to learn a lot from both of you guys, but then also having wisdom from other people in our group, like Jared, because he just generally he's a wise individual, like the way he thinks through things and talks things out. Whereas I'm more likely just to be like, hey, I'm going to close it. I'm doing it tomorrow. You guys can hold me back from that. Right. Like, but I can also, because I have a group of guys that I can talk to, that I can trust, I can say like, hey guys, this is starting to weigh on my relationship with my wife. We're having to take this action, and this action in order to sustain this business. So I'm not sure if I need to keep this thing open anymore. And because I can be that level of honest with you guys, we can come to a real decision like while we're in a meeting. And I think that was very beneficial for me. And then the last part would just be being able to lean on you guys for emotional support. Like as I'm going through it and I'm having all those tough conversations with people and basically made an entire town not like me because I took away that place that they were going to 3 to 5 times a week. And dealing with those conversations and just bouncing things off you guys and the best ways to handle things so that I don't knee-jerk react to certain things was very, very valuable, very helpful for me, and appreciate it.
I mean, and for everybody that's listening, like Joe is one of those guys. I think it was like, you're like, I'm going to close this place in like 3 weeks. It's like how fast it was. Like all of a sudden you send us a text, like I'm closing this location in like 3 weeks. And we're like, hold on a second. And so, but the idea is like, then the idea is even though we didn't have a meeting, we were able to still text and create, like, okay, here's what the different things you should think through, Joe, and kind of walk you through like, hey, could you sell it to this guy? Could you sell it to somebody else? Could you close in this amount of time? If you did sell it, how much should you be asking for? So I think there's like that tactical side, but then like you said, on the other side of it is like after it closed, having like, Danny had just gone through it like almost a year earlier, and the amount of emotional stress of people like being upset after and how to like actually tell people about it. So you had that feedback. But I think even the second closing a location, the harder component of it is we always think financially, but the emotional side is by far the weighing point because we're a relationship-based business. And like you said, we're affecting those relationships. So it's cool to have those people to bounce off. Because when I got rid of my second location, I didn't really like, we weren't close at that time. All of us, like our mastermind group was pretty young still when I got rid of my second location. Yeah. And so we hadn't really had a lot of conversations like we did when you and Danny both closed yours. And I can see that differently. The things I was going through, I wasn't really able to share just because like it was one of those things where it's like I wasn't closing, I was giving it to somebody else. But there wasn't a lot of it was a town I grew up in. So it was hard for me more than I realized, but we didn't have that bond yet. Now we have that bond so strong that I wish at this time if I had done it, I just know I would have had a lot better emotional escape from it and not feel bad about what I did,
Yeah, and I think what you said there is 100% true. The financial part, like I've still got a lease there that I'm paying for. Like I would still make the same because they're just dragging their feet a little bit on getting it rented out. But I would make the same decision over and over again. It was always the emotional side of it that was the hardest.
Yeah. And the part that you and me both, I think everybody really that's in a good mastermind group and really enjoys is the in-person events. And we only do 2 times a year as a very strategic purpose for that, because a lot of groups do 4 times a year. And it's just like, we know family is really important, and we want to make sure that when we are together, like, we're not taking too much time away from family, but when we are, we can be fully engaged. So we chose to do the 2 times a year, which I think works out really, really well because people are really engaged in the meeting. So what do you love the most about attending in-person events on both the like business tactical side as well as the personal event side?
So this is kind of on the business tactical side, but I like being able to, even though we're working on business, when I leave town, sometimes I can just let go of some of the things that are weighing on me a little bit with the business, because I know I'm going to solve those issues while I'm there. So while we're not talking about them directly, because I know we're going to come up with an answer together, it allows me to de-stress a little bit just by being in that particular situation. Also, just knowing that I'm going to have however many people are in the group focus specifically on my issue or my opportunity, whatever we want to call it, topic that I bring to the meeting, it's also lowers stress level a little bit as well, because again, I know I'm going to have those brains focused on my topic. So I'm going to come away with all these, not necessarily differing opinions, but different levels of experience that can contribute to me making a decision and then carrying through with that decision in a way that is going to work the best for my business. It's not going to lead to me saying the wrong thing or sending an email when I should have had an in-person conversation, things like that. As far as the non-business, like the non-tactical related side, that's definitely the most fun part, is just going out, having a couple beers, getting dinner together, competing in something, right? Like playing racquetball, playing whatever. Well, not rack. Gosh, what did we play?
Pickleball.
Pickleball. That's what I'm looking for. Pickleball, whatever it is, cornhole, going bowling, whatever we're doing, just spending time together because of those conversations that happen about the business when we're out there doing that. But then those conversations that aren't related to the business, so that we can help grow those bonds, which is what ultimately led to us staying in a group for 8 years after we're no longer, weren't affiliated with a professional organization. We kept our group together.
Yeah, it's just like, until you're in those events and understand, because everybody's been to a live event, right? Most likely in most industries, you've been to some type of speaking event that somebody put on, right? And those are fun, but usually you don't know a lot of people at those, so they don't get really as in depth afterward. But with the mastermind group, it's just it's just literally going out with a group of your buddies and being like, not dumb, but just being kids again, in a sense. You get to be 20-year-old in your set again. We get to do things like that. We have a good time. Competition, especially in our mastermind groups, has always been a component, because I think men just enjoy competition. Nothing ever too serious, but enough to make it so it's like everybody likes to get a little sweaty. We usually find a way to get some type of workout in on those trips as well, if that's possible. But it's also like, yeah, in-person stuff is just, I wish in my head, it's like, oh, I'd love to do more a year, but the obstacle is just like, then you're taking time away from family and stuff. But it's such a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's also like just the environment and atmosphere of the meetings themselves. So like in a virtual meeting, we have a 1 to 2 hour meeting, right? And you just can't be super engaged because you're like waiting for somebody else to answer. But in the live ones, there's just like, you can just feel the energy of other people pouring in. You literally have an hour for people to pour themselves fully into your business. And it's always amazing to think, like, I think of it, I'm like, man, what if I had like 7 people like this working inside of one business at a time? How much like good shit we'd get done versus one person always trying to do everything that these 7 people are talking about. And I think about that a lot whenever somebody's on my topic. I'm like, gosh, I need to do that. I need to do that. I was like, gosh, I just look at these other intelligent business owners and be like, I wish we had a business together so that we could run with it and like destroy the world as a team, So, but I think that there's just so much energy you get from other people, other business owners, because you can see their passion in what they're doing.
And it fills you. It fills you up and makes you more excited to go back and work.
So I know you said you're in a men's group as well for faith and stuff. Like, just how important do you think peer groups of like-minded individuals should be for people?
I think it's absolutely valuable as long as you're in a peer group of the right people that aren't going to try to have you stray off path from what your values are and what your goals are. And not even really necessarily your goals, but really your values, like your personal core values and what they are. Because those people should be lifting you up in areas where you're weaker or where you're not as prominent in, or where you need to improve, whether it's being a better leader for your home or being a better leader in your business. I know there's a lot of it. It's easier for me to lead in my business than it is for me to come home and be a good leader, because I'm coming home after trying to be a great leader all day. And then I got to try to do it in my home and I'm exhausted. And that's where it really needs to happen. So I need people in my life that are going to help lift me up in that area and help remind me and hold me accountable to being a great dad, being a great husband, and doing the best things that I can. I'm trying to, what was the question again? I feel like I was
you answered it. Yeah, you're good. It was just mainly like, why do you think people should be in peer groups? And you answered it. It's just because like they're the level of accountability. I was actually reading a book. I think it was in a book that I read last week. But it had talked about how when you see other people doing something, it gives you confidence to do it yourself. So examples like you're a big DIY person, right? Like if I watch a YouTube video and see like just some random guy pouring concrete, I'm like, oh, I can do that. Like there's nothing out there that I believe when I see somebody else do it that I can't do. And so I think that's the power of the mastermind too, is like mastermind group is you see another business owner doing something pretty amazing in their business. I'm like, I know Danny. Danny's not that much different than me. Like I can do exactly what Danny's doing. And it gives you that confidence to like, I can do this.
To actually do something that very specific that you might be uncomfortable doing too, right? Like something that, whatever it is, like it could be cutting a complete service out of your business that you think is something you've had forever, but maybe it's not serving you or it's not serving your family or business. And you're worried about it because of how your customers are going to react. But you've seen this other person do it. It helps you. It helps a lot. It helps massively. And then they help you get through it.
How do you maintain connections and relationships with members outside of scheduled meetings?
Oh man, we just talk all the time. I mean, my whole life with you guys is a meeting. Like if I got a problem, like there's no doubt. If I have a problem specific to my business, there's my peer group that I'm going to talk to, and then I'm going to talk to my wife, because both instances I just brought up will tell me the truth. So my wife will tell me the truth in one way about a specific situation. And then I have my peer group, which will also challenge me and tell me the truth. But again, they're coming from me specifically. I value my wife's opinion because of how honest she is, and she's willing to tell me the truth and kind of call me on my crap. But she's not entrepreneurial minded. She's not coming at it from that angle where it's like, we're in the if I'm in the shower, I'm like, oh, I just got a business idea. Like I could solve this problem by doing this, right? Like I've learned that my brain the way I look at things is different. And so having that peer group is where everybody kind of looks at it at the same way, allows me to trust them and to work through things for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those, I don't know if when you start a group, you'd think, because like when we started our very first mastermind group, we didn't really talk in between virtual meetings. Like we just did. Then all of a sudden one day, I remember you, me and Marshall just started texting after one meeting. And then from there, our text group has been like our main source. But like the first probably 6 months of that group, I don't think we had something like that. And I do think that there's a lot of value in that. It's not something that you have to be answering like the second somebody asks a question by any means, but you know when somebody is going to answer inside the group, you're going to get a lot of power, and you're going to, they're going to give you like, okay, I'm not just going to take it. I'm going to take a second to actually think through what Joe's asking. And you just don't have the access to like high-end business owners that way anywhere else. It's like literally if somebody else wanted to ask me a question or you a question and wanted to pay for that time, they probably need to pay $100, $200 an hour, and you have access to 6 other people that you have to pay nothing for, in a sense, right? To have access to that. Like, it's just like, I know this person is so respected business wise, but I have access to them in like an instant, which is such a powerful thing too, to have access to like these high end business owners that nobody else gets access to.
Yeah. Surrounding yourself and having, that kind of access is probably a blessing that we don't take time to appreciate often enough.
No, I thought about that. I've thought about that a lot on the side that I talk to other business owners now, especially now that I'm with Level Up and we work with a lot of different businesses now. And I get so many questions asked to me, and they're like, "Hey, I'm so sorry for like bugging your time." But they're like, "I respect your opinion." I'm like, "Oh, but I bug your guys' time all the time." I was like, "Hey, Joe, like I have this question, right?" But it's that
Yeah.
side where it's like, it is interesting that we are so free giving between your mastermind group. And I think that's the cool part about having a tight knit 10 people or less kind of group, is the fact that you have true access points to people that you trust and respect and can reach out at any time. And that, you know, that person in a timely manner is going to give you a response that you can trust. So.
Yeah, I'm eager to always answer, and not because I like to talk, just because we care about each other. Like, we want to help each other. Like, I'm excited to see you guys win. Anybody in our group win.
Inside of a mastermind group, there's always a level of accountability. And I think in our mastermind groups in different ways, like the Brotherhood, I have a more tight level of accountability specific, kind of the one we're doing currently in our mastermind with the checking in with people accountability wise. You have accountability buddies, but there's other levels of accountability inside of a mastermind group. Such as like the competition from like, okay, if Danny's doing this, I'm going to follow through and do it too, because I don't want Danny to get that far away from me, right? So kind of lean into that competition side of having, or an accountability of having other business owners doing amazing things that makes you want to do amazing things.
Well, I think just being around people who are doing better than you gives you more of an opportunity to strive for something. Like I'm very competitive, so I can want you to win and also want to beat you at the same time. And then if you can pass me again, whatever we're talking about, whatever metric or whatever's winning, then I'll be ecstatic for you. And then I can learn from what you did and then advance my business forward, because ultimately, if you do better, it's going to drive me to do better, which is going to serve my family. And that's all I care about, is serving my family. So I think it's healthy for us to want to be competitive with each other, but it's not to the point where one of us would withhold information from the other or drag the other person down. I think we're all just, in our group specifically, we're competitive. I think that lends itself to what I started talking about at the beginning, is you need to be around people that are doing better than you, or at least doing differently than you, like taking a different approach to the same problem so that you can learn from that. But I went for long enough being advised by people who were at the same level as me or were doing less than me, depending on how you view that, right? Like if we're looking at revenue or whatever it might be. And I was stagnant. And once we kind of pulled ourselves away, added some other people to our group, and then I got mentoring, it just, from people who were making more money than me, like it all adds up, and it helps us all rise. Like, I think it's important to have people, like I want people in my group to be doing better than me, so I have something to chase. Because when I have something to chase, then that drives me. But those people can also advise me in the process because they've experienced it. They've made decisions that I maybe wasn't willing to make before. That's why they're there.
Yeah, that's it's a hard thing to kind of monitor, like how everybody keeps moving forward. And it's one of those things too, is like if we take ourselves 8 years ago and us now, like we are just completely different human beings in the last 8 years because of how much we've leveled up year after year after year after year. And the idea of other people getting stagnant. But that's the cool part about, I think, a mastermind group is like, it's really hard for you to get stagnant because one, you're going to get called out. People are going to eventually say, hey, like you're not really doing much, or you're not moving your business forward. Or two, I don't know very many men that don't have that competitive spirit inside somewhere, regardless of what avenue it is. That's like I see this person over here winning and I gotta win. Like I want to, like, you just have that desire to win. Again, like not negative to that person, but that person motivates you to like, oh man, like I love Joe and Joe is such a good human. Joe's not that much different than me personally. And so because it's not that much different, like if I can win just like Joe, and now I have this like person, this mentor, this person to follow along the way. Okay, I'm just going to do everything Joe does, in at least this aspect of whatever I'm trying to grow. Right. And that kind of levels up. I'll use me as an example for you is I've always had a strong faith, but never really dove into my faith. And until being a mastermind with you, especially over the last probably 3 years, I've really taken it to heart to like, have conversations with you about God at meetings, and having these conversations have led me to dive more and more into my faith and I have read the Bible every day for the last 2 years, been hard in my faith, that kind of stuff. But it's one of those things that inspires me because this is another person living the life that I want to live. and there's one aspect of his life where he does a better job than me. And instead of me being like jealous of that, I'm like, no, dude, this is a person for me to jump on his back and have him carry me through this moment of something I'm not great at. And that kind of in certain ways challenges me because I didn't grow up in a family of faith. So it's out of my comfort zone. So it's really for me to dive into this. I've been able to lean on you heavily during this time to be able to get closer to the man I want to be. And I just really appreciate for you for having that strong faith in your life to help guide me along this path from, like, you live in North Carolina, I live in Arizona, and you're guiding me on a faith-based path by showing who you are every single day allows me to be like, this is the man I want. This is the person I want to be like.
That means a lot, dude, because if there's any kind of impact I can have, it's that eternal kind of impact that I want to have in people's lives. So I appreciate you telling me that. Gosh, I was going to say something related to what you were just talking about, though, with so I don't know if this is an entrepreneurial type of mindset or not, but I often, if I go to an event where I don't know anybody and I know I need to talk to people I don't know, or I'm going to an event where I know somebody's going to be there that might have some knowledge or have some aspect, like it could be related to my faith, but they have something, they've done something, or they've studied something that I haven't. I want to talk to them so that I can learn from them. I often think, I'm like, am I being selfish because I am going to choose to surround myself with people that I can purposefully take something from, or learn from is really a much nicer sounding word. But I honestly have those thoughts. I'm like, I need to spend time with that guy because I think I can learn this, this, and this. And I don't know if you think that way, but that's kind of what that got me thinking about as you were just talking about that. And I wonder if other entrepreneurs think that way.
I don't think for the most part, because that doesn't really cross my mind ever. The fact that what you just said is like, I know I'm trying because, it's the idea is, how much value am I adding back to their life, right? That's the equation, right? I'm getting a lot of value. How am I adding back value to their life? But you'll never know until you go spend time with that person or like learn from that person to see how much value you can add back. So the value equation can only be, can I show up as my best self, learning everything I can, really learning all this stuff. If I have a chance to talk to this person, great. But then ideas like, I know as a human being, you're a great human being as well. I can add value to anybody's life out there that wants to take time to take value from me too. So I never feel bad about that component, because the idea is like, if they had a moment with me, I guarantee in some way I would add them so much value. The value could just be giving them a hell of a lot of compliments. But the idea is like, in general, is like, I'm going to add value to their life eventually if it's something. So yeah, but I get where you're coming from. The value equation is like, you want to make sure this is another, me and Mark had a podcast recently, and we talked about that value exchange. And one of the things is the idea is you want to make sure that when you're in these groups, you're more of a giver than a taker, right? And we've had people in our groups that are more takers than givers, and we know the difference between that. And it's that natural thing is like, I think everybody, at least in the groups that I've been part of, is like always been like, I want to like give as much as I can, and then I'm just going to sneak the things I need away from here, but I'm going to pour all my energy into these people, because naturally then they'll pour it back into me, which is where I'm taking from.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's go ahead and wrap up today's podcast with one last question. What advice would you give someone considering joining a mastermind group?
If you have the opportunity to join a mastermind group, just do it. But do some research first. Find out which one you think will be the best fit for your values. If you find a group that fits your values, then they're probably the ones that are going to serve you the most. You don't want to be in a group of people that necessarily are going to differ from you value-wise. And by that, I do mean faith. I do mean how you go about your business if you're married, when you're not around your spouse, right? Like how you do things, because everybody does things differently. And again, you don't want to surround yourself with people that are going to detract or put you off track of where you're headed in your life with your values. So it's important to do that. But there's so much value to be gained from having that peer group, especially in a men's peer group as a man. Not to downplay the insight and the value that you can gain from a woman, but there's specific aspects of being in a group with other men that will lift you up, because I am a man. And then probably most of the people that are going to be watching this, there's some similarities there that matter a lot. I'm a good example of somebody I accidentally fell into a mastermind group, and then it changed my life to a point to where I cannot imagine my life without one, to the point that where when I left my last one, I was actively searching to see where I was going to go next, like a free agent. that was how I felt. Like I was looking for another group to be a part of. And then I got lucky enough that we kept our group going. And then I just ended up adding some private coaching essentially. And now I have the pieces that I'm looking for. So if you're at a point in your business where you're stagnant, or if you're at a point in your life and you're looking for a group of people that you can trust to advise you on an ongoing basis, or that you can build trust with, a mastermind group is an effective way. It's a great way to go.
Yeah, I couldn't. I mean, and also the term mastermind is such a broad term anymore too, because there's people that have mastermind groups that are like thousands of people can be in, right? They'll just call it a mastermind group, but it's like one person in front of the stage talking to 1,000 people. Ours is that intimate idea where it's 10 people or less per group, which allows you to really like mastermind between the small, like almost like a think tank, kind of idea. But I agree that I think every entrepreneur should be involved in some variation of a mastermind group, because if you're not, you're probably being stagnant without realizing you're being stagnant. Like you might think you're doing pretty good, but if you got in a group with one person that had one new idea for you a quarter or a half a year, your business would probably very quickly multiply, right? I don't know if it's 10x exactly, depending on the mastermind group you're in, but you're going to X your business somehow by being a mastermind group. So if you're an entrepreneur and don't have it, you need to be doing it. So all right, Joe, thanks for the conversation today. I appreciate the time. If you're a male entrepreneur and you want to join the Brotherhood Beyond Business group, please contact us. Have a great day, everybody.